Many people begin their fat loss journey with a very simple belief. Just put on your shoes, run more every day, and the body will naturally become leaner. And if you're watching this video, chances are you've believed that at some point too. You run consistently, even pushing yourself hard. You sweat, you feel tired, exhausted, but when you step on the scale, when you look at your belly, almost nothing seems to change. And the worst part isn't the result, it's the feeling, am I doing something wrong? Or is there something wrong with my body? But the truth is, you're not wrong. And your body isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. The issue isn't your effort, it's the signals your body is receiving every day. And once you understand that, the way you see fat loss will completely change. Running is one of the most celebrated activities in the fitness world. It's great for cardiovascular health, helps relieve stress, and improves endurance. But there's a deeply rooted assumption. The more you run, the more fat you burn. It sounds logical, but biology doesn't work that simply. Your body doesn't care how many kilometers you've run. It doesn't care how many calories your watch says you burned. The only thing it cares about is this. What is your internal hormonal environment signaling? And this is where everything starts to shift in a direction most people don't realize. When you increase your running volume, especially long runs, repeated day after day, without proper recovery, your body doesn't interpret that as, I'm training to get healthier. It interprets it as a form of repeated stress. And in biology, stress isn't inherently bad, but prolonged, unresolved stress activates a completely different mechanism, survival mode. At that point, your body is no longer optimizing for fat loss. It's optimizing for survival. And in survival mode, fat is not something to eliminate, it's something to preserve. This is where one of the most important hormones enters the picture, cortisol. Cortisol is often misunderstood as a bad hormone, but in reality, it's essential. When you run, cortisol rises to help mobilize energy, increase alertness, and keep you moving. In the short term, this is a powerful and beneficial response. But the problem begins when cortisol doesn't come back down after your workout. When you run too much, recover too little, or your life is already stressful, cortisol stays elevated for long periods. And at that point, its role changes. It's no longer your ally, it becomes a constant internal alarm signal. With chronically high cortisol, your body begins to recalibrate its entire system. It downregulates processes that aren't essential for long-term survival, like fat burning. It increases hunger, especially cravings for quick energy sources like sugar and refined carbs. And it holds on to energy in the form of fat, because in biological language, prolonged stress signals an unsafe environment. You might not notice this immediately. You still run, you still eat relatively clean, you still believe you're in a calorie deficit, but internally, small changes begin to accumulate. You feel slightly hungrier after each run. Your sleep becomes slightly worse. You feel more fatigued, so you unconsciously move less during the rest of the day. You eat a little more, not much, but enough to offset the calories you just burned. And the most dangerous part is, none of this feels like you're doing something wrong. It all feels logical, natural, completely aligned with how your body works. That's why so many people fall into a loop. The more they run, the more tired they feel, the hungrier they become, and the less fat they lose. In some cases, they even gain fat, especially around the belly. This isn't random. Cortisol tends to direct fat storage toward the abdominal area, where there are more receptors sensitive to this hormone. This is visceral fat, the most metabolically dangerous type of fat, and also the most stubborn when you try to lose it. So you might be burning a lot of calories through running, but internally, your body is quietly creating the perfect conditions to store fat exactly where you want to lose it most. And this is the moment to pause and ask yourself, have you ever felt like you're doing everything right, yet the results don't reflect that? Have you ever been consistent with running and controlled your diet, but your body still doesn't change the way you expected? If the answer is yes, then maybe you're not lacking discipline. You're just stuck in a biological system you haven't fully understood yet. And when you don't understand it, you keep trying harder in the same way, without realizing that the very approach you're using is what's holding you back. What you need to start seeing from here isn't that running is bad. It's not. Running is an incredible tool, but like any tool, when used in the wrong context, it can produce the opposite of the intended result. The question isn't whether you run or not. The question is, what signals are you sending your body when you run? And in the next part, we'll go deeper into how these signals don't just affect fat loss, but also reshape how your body manages energy, hunger, and even your daily metabolic rate. The most dangerous part of this entire story isn't how much or how little you run, it's this. Your body begins to adapt, but in a direction you don't want. And to understand that, you need to look deeper into what could be called the fat loss trap, a mechanism many people are caught in without even realizing it. When you run, you burn calories. That's true. But your body is not just a calorie-counting machine. It's a highly complex biological system that constantly seeks balance and tries to prevent you from falling into a prolonged energy deficit. So when you repeatedly create stress through excessive running, your body doesn't just sit there and let fat burn. It responds. And that response begins with hormones. Elevated cortisol is already part of the problem, but it doesn't act alone. It directly interacts with two crucial hormones, ghrelin and leptin. Ghrelin is the hormone that stimulates hunger. Leptin is the hormone that signals fullness. When cortisol stays elevated over time, ghrelin becomes louder, while leptin becomes quieter. That means you feel hungrier, but it becomes harder to recognize when you've had enough. And this is where things become subtle. After a long run, you may feel like you've earned the right to eat a little more. That sounds reasonable. In fact, to some extent, it is. But the problem is that hunger signals after stress don't accurately reflect your body's true energy needs. They're amplified. And when you eat based on those signals, it becomes very easy to consume more calories than you actually burned. This is the compensation effect, eating back what you burned. And the tricky part is that it doesn't feel like you're breaking your diet. You're not overeating recklessly. You're just eating a little more reasonably. But that little bit, repeated every day, can completely erase the calorie deficit you believe you're creating. And because it happens subtly, you don't notice it. You still believe you're doing everything right. You keep running. And the cycle continues. This is why so many people say, I train hard, but I don't understand why I'm not losing weight. It's not because they lack discipline. It's because their body is playing a biological game they don't yet understand. And the trap goes even deeper. When you consistently put your body under stress, it doesn't just affect hunger, it also changes how your body uses energy. One of the first adaptations is a reduction in metabolic rate. This isn't a broken metabolism like many people assume it's an adaptation. Your body becomes more efficient. It uses less energy to perform the same activities. That might sound like a good thing, but in the context of fat loss, it's a disadvantage. Because it means you're burning fewer calories throughout the day even when you're not exercising. And when this combines with eating slightly more after each run, the end result is clear. You're no longer in a calorie deficit. You may be at maintenance or even in a surplus. But because everything feels reasonable, you don't realize it. There's another factor most people overlook: muscle. When you focus too much on running and neglect strength training, your body may begin breaking down muscle to meet its energy demands, especially if you're not eating enough or not recovering properly. And when you lose muscle, you lose one of the most important drivers of metabolic rate. Muscle isn't just about appearance. It's your body's metabolic engine. Every kilogram of muscle helps you burn more calories even at rest. So when you lose muscle, you're not just getting weaker, you're also making fat loss harder over time. And this is where the cycle becomes clear. You run more. Cortisol rises, you feel hungrier, you eat more, your metabolism slows, you lose muscle, you burn fewer calories, you run even more to compensate, and the cycle continues. Do you see what's happening? This isn't a problem of willpower. This is a system regulating itself to keep you stable. And if you don't change your approach, you'll keep looping inside that system no matter how hard you try. But there's a critical moment I want you to recognize right here. Hunger after running is not always a signal that you need to eat. Fatigue is not always a sign that you need to train more. And not losing fat doesn't necessarily mean you need to try harder. Sometimes it means you need to pause and understand what is actually happening inside your body. And in the next part, we'll go deeper into a factor that can completely change the game. The difference between running and strength training, not at the level of calories, but at the level of hormones and the metabolic environment they create. This is the point most people miss, and also the point that can completely transform your results.